All right, welcome back. The Penguins, on the record, say they're 10-10-5. What that translates into is 10-15. They've lost 15 of the first 25 games they've played, and no matter what has happened, whether it's a tweak of a trade or whatever, it hasn't gotten the attention of the players so far. So we're going to start talking about the Penguins and where they are and what they have to do to change things. Jason Mackey, I'll begin with you. We saw a trade by Jim Rutherford, the Hagelin deal that brought in Tanner Pearson. He's played okay, but it hasn't really translated into any kind of success for this team. What's next? Is there another trade coming? Is there a bigger trade? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I know Jim made the move that he did in part because they like Tanner Pearson, but also to get his players' attention. And like you said, Pomp, that has not happened. I believe they've dropped 9 of 12, something like that, since that trade occurred. And that's not what Rutherford wanted. That's not what anybody wanted. Everybody around the team is surprised that this slow start has become more than a slow start. And so, yeah, I think Jim is getting to the point where you have to figure out, is this season going to be a transition year? Are we going to have to cut bait and do something that's going to sustain the rest of the run with the Crosby and Malkin era? And I think that's something they're seriously considering. I don't think it's something they want to do. I think they would obviously like to start winning hockey games and get back into this thing because reasonably they aren't all that far away. But you have to see some sort of progress here, and if this continues down this road, I have no doubt in my mind Rutherford's going to do something substantial.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Jason. I think the time isn't all that far away when we could possibly see that, but Jim's in a real bind here. There's really no help in Wilkes-Barre on the way, so that's not really an option, and there's only so much more he can do in terms of trades. I mean, really, they're up against the salary cap. Yeah, he can make a move, but there's no obvious moves out there for him to make that are magically going to make this team better. This team has serious goal prevention issues. They've got backup goaltenders playing like backup goaltenders. They haven't been bad, but they're backups. Matt Murray, we don't know how long he's out for, and we don't know how he's going to play when he does come back. And the blue line, other than Chris Letang and Brian Dumoulin, and Letang was awful last night, but we'll give him a mulligan. He's been very good. The blue line's just not very good, and the forwards aren't very interested in playing defense. So what does that mean? It means they're one of the worst teams in goals against in hockey. Teams like that don't make the playoffs. It has to change.
Well, I just look at what Mike Sullivan said after the Flyers game, and he was asked about the shorthanded goal, and he just, he said the truth. It resonated with me. He said, because our team just wasn't, even aware of it. This is who they are. They're a team that wants to play offense, offense, offense. He said they have no defensive conscience at all while they're on the power play. And that's exactly correct. Say this for the guy. His team is essentially, they're 10-15, like Pomp, like you said, but he knows what they are. They're a team that's not getting the goaltending, not getting the overall goal production to make up for the fact that they've always been this. That they're a team that wants to play offense, 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 and screw the rest of it because that's not nearly as much fun. And when your big free agent signing is to bring in Jack Johnson, and the best argument anyone can realistically make is because he's buddies with Sidney Crosby to shore up that blue line, well, you're not going to become magically a defensive team overnight. They're just not very good. Everyone wants to assume in this town because they're the Penguins, because they don't have bridge years, transition years, because they have so many superstars, because they've been so successful, that they're immune to this kind of a swoon. Guess what? Newsflash. That core isn't getting any younger, and most teams don't win after 30 when their feature guys are after 30 in the NHL. They bucked the trend 2 of the last 3 years. It seems like the old undefeated father time's catching up to them.
Yeah, and everyone wants to say, Chris, they just don't care right now. That's the problem. Maybe they do care. And maybe that's the more alarming part. And what Sullivan said after the game last night, you don't hear coaches say things like that very often. It was a jarring comment. I thought he was right. In general, he's been very complimentary, playing good cop after games the last couple of weeks when they don't play well. I've been told behind closed doors it's a completely different story. He's furious with this team.
Well, you talked about Derek Brassard, and I think that's an interesting topic because that was a much celebrated trade. People thought, oh, that's going to be the one that gets into a three-peat. He has not been anywhere near what I think the Penguins expected. They gave up a lot to get him as well. So, Jason, if he doesn't shake out of it, what do they do with him? They're not getting production from guys like Brian Rust, from any of the guys bottom 6 on a consistent level. So if it's not the top guy scoring on a power play, they don't have much else going on. What do they do with Brassard?
They need to seriously entertain moving him, Pomp, and I do think they can do that. I don't think Derek Brassard is a bad hockey player. I think he is the wrong hockey player for this team and what the Penguins want and what they need in Mike Sullivan's system. He has a $3 million price tag right now because Vegas is picking up $2 million of his salary. That's movable. That is the one move that Jim Rutherford can reasonably make. I think you could make the argument that he could move out Olli Maatta as well, but Olli, frankly, hasn't been as bad as I think a lot of people want to say, and I'm not sure what you're doing. The one move, again, that you can make to maybe address some of your goal prevention issues, whether it's with a goaltender, whether it's with a defenseman, or even I'd like to see them get somebody who could contribute some semblance of offense. You send out Derek Brassard for somebody, spend that $3 million elsewhere, and I do think somebody would take him. And
the problem with trading Olli Maatta, by the way, you're so thin on the blue line anyway, and you have nothing in Wilkes-Barre. If you trade Maatta or one of these defensemen, it's a major issue. They have talent still, but they have some serious issues.
Father Time.
Yep.
Undefeated.
Yeah, and trying to win also. And when they did this, I have no problem trying to win now.
They cashed in 2 or 3.
They cashed in. But they also had, they gave up some of the people and draft picks that maybe could have helped them now in their system. But they, I have no problem with that. Does anybody have a problem with that? That's what they needed to do to win.
Oh, the Stanley Cup rings were nice.
Yeah, and at some time you knew there was going to be a reverse effect. That's how it works when it's a competitive league like this. So,
well, you got to pay the toll. They're paying the toll right now.
I wouldn't say they're paying the toll. What they got in the Stanley Cup years, they're simply not getting. I mean, they got exemplary goaltending from Matt Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury. They got terrific secondary scoring. They're getting none now. As Josh said, they were much better defensively in those Cup years. They had young kids come up and score and sort of punch above their weight when it comes to the salary cap. They're not getting any of that. So I don't know if I would look at this as like a toll that they're eventually having to, there's this residual price of winning. I mean, they're just not getting commensurate production or what they used to get from a lot of similar guys.
All right, we got to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Pitt after their loss to Clemson. Where are they? What does 7-6 mean to you? That's next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown.